We're now live. So good afternoon, everyone. After a few little teething problems there.
Yeah. How are you, JB?
Yeah, I'm good, CJ. How are you?
Yeah. Oh, amazing, mate. Amazing.
Good. And our special guest, Dorinda Cox from over in WA.
Hello.
Good afternoon.
Dorinda.
How are you?
All right. Well, good. Nice to meet you, actually. Yes.
Better now.
You too?
Now, we're just going to acknowledge country. So we just want to acknowledge the traditional custodians where we meet, play, work, and pay the utmost respect to our elders, past, present, and any emerging elders. And we've got a bit of a background noise there, but we'll keep going. And look, just think about what's happening in the world today, and just try and send some love and healing to everyone that needs that love and healing. Now, over to you, Dorinda. Hear a little bit about your backstory. And just tell us a little bit about you and what you're doing, Dorinda.
Okay, so I'm a Kaniyang Yued Noongar woman. So my nation is the Noongar Nation, which is on the southwest coast of WA. I live in beautiful Wajak country, which is in Perth. And so I basically live off country, really, because my mother's country is to the north of Perth and my father's country is to the south. But I've lived here for 43 years, tells how old I am, but I came here when I was just a baby. So I call this home, and I've raised my two beautiful daughters here as well, and live here with my family. I'm currently working as a consultant, so I work for myself. I'm my own boss pretty much these days, which is not unusual, I suppose, for mums and women that are entrepreneurs and doing their own thing in the world. But I do a lot of stuff in and out of government for not-for-profit organisations, doing a little bit in the research area as well, on and off in evaluation of programs. I've mainly worked in the family violence, sexual assault area for about the last 20 years. I spent some time in WA Police. I'm still an advisor to the Commissioner here, which I've met with this week around the Black Lives Matters campaign and other things. I tried to broaden the scope a little bit around economic development and business opportunities for our mob, because that's ever so important about community well-being and making sure that we create our own circular economy and do things for us that are going to benefit and look after one another, because that's so important, particularly in this climate. So we are over here on the West Coast, a big mining town pretty much, and mining runs our lives. And as you've seen this week, we've had some really tragic events with some of the destruction of our oldest sites of 46,000 years old, of gorges and things like that. So it's pretty heartbreaking when that happens on country for all of us, and it really sort of brings it back to home about the importance of where you are and who you are and how you identify. And then globally, as you said, Jack, all the stuff that's happening in the US and across the world pretty much around the Black Lives Matter campaigns. And so a lot of my time this week has been consumed by providing both advice to government and others, but really just trying to deal with the exhaustion of the day-to-day stuff that's happening for our mob, and social media has been absolutely frantic this week with all of the stuff that's being churned out. So it doesn't stop, I suppose, for us and our mob, and trying to support everybody that's trying to do their bit, because not one of us can do that, solve the world's problems. But together, I think each of us has a part to play in all of that. So it's really important. I've also done a bit of a webinar this week on international human rights and gender equality. And so that was yesterday, pretty successful. We had about 52 people online, mainly women. Yeah, talking about international human rights and what we can do to increase. I was loving the conversation about intersectionality, but one of the ladies online said, you know what we need to do? We need to put First Nations women at the front of this and if they can take leadership in this, we will make change. And I was nearly in tears, actually, just thinking, you know, when other women know that the movement that's happening globally impacts so much on us here, that they're willing to give up their space. And that's exactly what I reminded them, that you need to almost get out of the way and let us through, or pull up a seat to the table that you've already got privilege to sit at. We're going to get so much further working together on that than what we can do individually. So, yeah.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Now, Dorinda, you do a little bit of work on the post-COVID-19, I see. Tell us a little bit about that work, because it's pretty special work, I think.
Yeah, so I was in government. I went in government for about 4 weeks, running the COVID task force for the state, so for the whole of WA, in relation to responses for Aboriginal communities here, and that included remote communities as well, working alongside them. It's very interesting. It was a very interesting landscape because sort of north of the 26th parallel here was a biosecurity sort of zone, I suppose you'd call it. And so, you know, they put down restrictions, you know, for us in internal borders pretty much, that we were unable to travel. And then even included in them, so in the Kimberley even, were restrictions across local government areas, which was quite difficult, I think, for our mob to navigate. You know, when you think about how transient people are just coming from, say, Balgo into Kununurra, you know, people wanted to go shopping, they needed to visit family, they still had funerals that were happening during that time. But a lot of the remote, there's about 141 across the state here. A lot of the communities took responsibility for access to their own community. They put up their own boulders, they put logs across access roads. They just did what they could to stop people coming in, which was amazing, you know, when you think about our mob just going, you know what, we don't want anyone bringing COVID-19 into our community. So it was really brilliant to see. We did a lot of work on food security. So there was lots of conversations around making sure our mob had enough of feed and they were getting their basic needs met during that time. So there was food security conversations that I managed from the main office here in Perth, but basically stretched out via rail and truck and transport to those remotes. And lots of conversations across government around just comfort stuff, you know, what do people need? We basically got prisoners that were in prison making pamper and comfort packs for elders, for kids, for refugees. It was just a real, making furniture. It was a really sort of, I think it was an amazing time for things to be done differently and for people to just go, now's the time to change what we normally do because we can't do it. So government always work pretty slow when it comes to community response stuff. So in the Pilbara, we just saw Pilbara mob, you know, the local native title group, just pull everyone together, go to mining companies and say, what can you do for us? And so I think for me, one of the shining lights in all of that was the leadership that our own mob showed during that time. They just stood up and went, you know what, the job needs to get done, we're just going to do it, rather than waiting for government to say, oh, this is what we think you need, or how can we help you? Our mob just led, and that's why the job got done here, I think, in WA. I don't know about other states and territories, but I can only speak for the work that I saw from our mob. And all we did was work alongside them about what they needed. Midwest Gascoyne, we helped one of the remote communities get 6 months worth of food sources. The biggest problem is storage. So infrastructure was a big problem. So local schools were out of action. Go down there and use their freezers, go and use their, you know, storage places. It was stuff like that were just practical, that you needed to just think outside the square. Homelessness was another huge issue. People that were on the street who were at risk of COVID-19, particularly here in Perth. We used one of the local sport and recreation community sort of school camp facilities, and we had about 57 people in there. Most of them were complex cases, so most of them were people who had drug and alcohol use, mental health. But each day I made sure they all lined up, took their temperature. So it was a bit of a joke, running joke that it was a COVID neutral environment. It wasn't a prison camp, and I didn't run it like that. I was said to them, you can come and go as you want, but every time you come back on site, you got to get tested for. And we got a visiting GP. Most of it was about their health needs, and so lots of them were detoxing or coming off drugs. So we had to get, their medical needs taken care of as well. Most of those people were housed, which I was absolutely ecstatic about, because we need an outcome for them. We can't just bring them to a place and then let everyone go because COVID's finished. When we wanted an outcome of those people actually getting long-term sustainable housing. And to be walked alongside and helped in all of that, because it was all trauma-based stuff, stuff that we hear about, and the majority of it was men, to be honest. And so I felt, there was a young dad there that had his 16-year-old boy, and sitting and talking to him about how he'd been in prison for 20 years and then just how he wanted his boy with him. And I said, okay, how do we work with you to make that happen? So, it's about thinking differently about what you need to do. And so, and not thinking that we've got to stereotype people because of their circumstance or where they've been or what they've experienced. And he was pretty upfront that he was, perpetrator of violence and why he'd gone to prison and what he was facing and where he came from in his life. And it was just sitting and listening, and I really value and treasure the time that I spent with Jack and Craig, Rigney and other guys, and listening to the framework that you guys were developing and that work to hear, the special types of programs that we actually need for our men and boys to actually is such a big gap still, particularly here in WA.
That's interesting, Dorinda. It's that time, I suppose, to have some conversations. I suppose it was really interesting how COVID sort of pushed us more together that way. To have a yarn and do that. I've also heard, other type, like even Hopefar I think that was Tuesday night. They were telling us how they took charge of what they needed to do and got their men's group back together. They kind of mobilised themselves and did all that sort of stuff. I know when we talked to Renee Blackman up there in Mount Isa as well, she's CEO of Gidgee Healing, the Aboriginal Medical Service. So they got together as with the public health, I suppose, Queensland Health Facilities, hospitals, and they worked out a plan, by themselves, I suppose, in terms of which way they want to go. So absolutely fantastic work you're doing. Absolutely. Yeah.
And I mean, it's like I say, it's a work in progress, and I think we can only get better and we can only increase that, with making spaces for men and boys and women and girls, that collectively we need to make sure that we've got those safe spaces where people can have those safe yarns with people about, this is what I need and not feel like they're by themselves. And I think COVID has completely isolated people, and I think people's mental health has really suffered. I didn't have the joy of that happening at all. I was working the whole time, so I didn't get to see my kids as much as I wanted to. I didn't get to homeschool, but my mum did, and so you
didn't miss much.
I know. They went to school. You didn't miss much.
No. Mr. Bullman.
Yeah. I know that, so you didn't miss much.
Oh, good. I'm glad.
But having said that, I did learn a little bit about Year 10 maths and law, legal studies, and all that stuff. So it probably holds me in good stead now if I ever go back to it. Now, Dorinda,
yes.
What we'd like to know is, we've been talking a lot lately about self-care and these sort of things. How are you looking after yourself? Because it seems like you've been run off your feet and so busy. Tell us a little bit about how you're looking after yourself and filling back up that tank, if you like.
Yeah. I've to be honest, and just before I got online, I was out unpacking my new treadmill, would you believe, in my garage. And so Yes, and the gym was open this week, and so I was so excited. I'm one of those people that I need discipline in my life to to kick my butt and go, you got to go to the gym and it's class time now. So I was so excited that the gym was open, because that's my self-care. For an hour, I zone out and I just do exercise, and it clears my mind. It stops me from thinking about everything else that I need to do during the day. And so mental health wise, exercise is really, really good for me. So I'm glad that I have. And I tried to do it when I was during COVID, and I just didn't get time. Like, my business didn't suffer at all, can I say, because I was more accessible to people. I was just saying that today. When you're not on a plane, you're actually more accessible to people. So you're sitting idle. But in saying that, I was extremely sore after Monday's big effort. And then I went down to the massage place, and so I get my nails done, getting a massage. All that self-care stuff is absolutely what I've missed in the last 3 months of actually being able to do it. And then just taking a long walk. I went during the week down to the river and just reconnected, just sat on the grass, had lunch, and just took in everything, just reconnected with nature, I suppose, or the environment, and just grounded myself a little bit. Because when you're in the house, and lots of days I work from home, so I'm in and out of the house, and the kids, the crazy routine we keep. But that self-care about just being able to go and sit for an hour is really, really important, and helps me to just think about not being so crazy, and I've got to be over here at this meeting, I've got to be doing this, I've got to be on this Zoom call. It absolutely takes all that away from that, just for a moment, and for you to settle your mind a little bit and say, look, what really matters in this. And I think COVID has shown me what's really mattered in my life, and the importance of all of that. And I was saying, the reconnection that I've had particularly with my kids and my family during that time, has been amazing. And you just can't fault that with anything else, except that in a pandemic you will make time for all of that. So I think looking after them and looking after you and finding that time has been important.
Yeah, we seem to have a bit of time, don't we?
Sorry?
Yeah, absolutely. We've been talking big time about self-care, and like, you're spot on with the training part of it, but also getting back and just having to sit down and, as you said, sit there for an hour and just to reinvigorate yourself, I suppose. So it's really important, and we all have different ways of doing it. Totally. Your 2 ways that you just said then were perfect for me as well. So. That's what we like to do as well, get stuck into our training, but also, as you said, love to sit down and just, reflect, I suppose. So, and what about you, Steve? How have you been looking after yourself?
Well, Jack, I live by the sea, so I walk the beach every morning. And
lucky you!
About an hour.
I'd love that.
So it's quite nice. I don't wear shoes around here. I just because there's nothing between us and the beach, so I just walk down the beach, walk back up into our apartment. So no, it's pretty nice. And but I tend to get down the other end of the beach and do a little bit of meditation, I suppose, or mindfulness, and then walk back again. So it's and it's just lovely. I love the ocean, and you get to see so much happening, or you don't see anything at all, which is really nice too. It's just
very calming.
Very calming indeed. And because other than that, I suppose we're all busy. You know what I mean? I'm doing quite a bit of work around business at the moment with our Indigenous Chamber of Commerce here.
Yeah.
We're providing some support for those businesses that are having some problems, I suppose, or having any issues or concerns and needing help with things. So it's been a good initiative by the state government to get us on board, I suppose, to support those guys. And a lot of it, as you know, is that mental health stuff as well. It's that financial stress, depression around the whole situation. And, maintaining that, that balance between work, business, and family and community. You know what I mean? It's really, it's kind of changed a whole lot of stuff, especially when we don't have business, if you like, or we don't have work. So, we've got to be mindful of that, I guess. And Jack and I talk about it quite a lot, where, we're lucky we've got wives and partners and, family around us, whereas some people, like you say, those homeless guys, are more isolated, and fantastic work getting them in accommodation. That's amazing. It's
Absolutely.
I think that that sort of work, I suppose what happened there needs to be, I suppose, analysed, pulled apart, put it back together again, and say we should do this more often. Outside of the COVID stuff.
Yeah, and that's great model. I think that's the innovation that's been shown, I suppose. But then I think people want to revert to the norm. I don't know what they think the norm looks like now, but I don't think that's what we've had before we could ever go back to. And I think that we've come quite a long way in doing that. And I think as Aboriginal people, and I can only speak for locally here, but we've got a rally tomorrow around Black Lives Matters, and just the momentum and strength that I hear in our mob when they talk now, and they're not afraid. They're not afraid to say what's going on. And I think that this movement has helped people to gain some more confidence in having conversations. And I think that that's been really powerful. And I think that what I'm hearing just from the people that I've been working with this week is we need to tell the government what we need. And I haven't heard that for quite a long time, to be honest. I think we've become a little bit complacent about, we'll just, we'll have a yarn to them. But I think we're actually demanding a lot more, which I think is a really positive part of, if there's ever a silver lining to what's happening, that this is a really strength building sort of movement that people are saying, we're not going to put up with this anymore. And I think there's been a big line in the sand. And so I think we just have to find the how-to now. And I think, like you say, if we've had things that have worked, or whether it's in homelessness, whether it's in family violence, it doesn't matter where it is, let's duplicate that. Let's work with it. Let's move it forward so that we actually have some more positive engagement with people saying this is what we actually need and this is the time that we need it. And I think, if anything, that's going to be a positive thing.
Absolutely. 100%. 100%. And like, if we think about 2020, I mean, it's been such a big year for everyone. Like we started off with the bushfires. Then we had the floods, and then we had COVID-19. No one's ever seen this sort of stuff ever in their lives before, So it's about the uncertainty as well. And now we've got everything that happened with, George Floyd, and then what it's brought back to us fellas here. And as you said before, about having a voice, about, okay, enough is enough. And it's been so good. And the more you see, the more you realise how resilient our people are, So it's such a beautiful thing to see, that everyone coming together and being able to work, play and live together, because, sometimes we don't see that happening with our mobs.
No, that's right.
Yeah. It's been really heartening as well, to see, a lot of our mates, our non-Indigenous friends, getting up and also taking part in this, because it's really important that, for a long time, a lot of people stay silent about this stuff, but, whether they feel it's right or wrong, they still stay silent. But it's great to see our friends get up and, support us in that way. And we need more of our mates to, tell the story as well, and listen and learn, that type of stuff. So I've got a few people come on board. I've got Joseph Uwe. He said, good evening, fellas and sister.
Hey, brother.
Hey. He said, too deadly, sis. That was Joseph.
Thank you.
Task.
Tell him flattery will get him everywhere.
Keep going, Joseph. You're going good.
Yeah, that's it.
We've got Sid Chatfield on in Task Brothers and Sister, and we also have Rimmer Tamu who's watching at the moment. My good mate Rimmer from up in Innisfail there. I think he's yeah.
Brother Sid.
Yeah, brother Sid. Natalie Mazzoni, also from she's from Stratty, North Stratford College. She's on board. Jan Hogan, our international audience. She comes all the way from Wales, Dorinda.
All the way from Wales.
Hi, Jan.
Good morning to Jan.
Yeah. Well,
Good
what's
morning.
the time over in Wales at the moment? Must be really early.
We think it's around about 8 o'clock, I think. So 8 o'clock.
Oh gosh, she's up
So
early.
Jan sets her alarm every Monday and Friday so she can get up and this is what we're prattling on about.
Oh, good.
Cheryl Patricia Stormanoff down there at Newcastle, she's joined and she's having a listen. Leah Johnson, love the sharing of resources for all.
G'day, Leah. Leah's in Melbourne.
Well done. Brian Carter, who's in Brisbane, he's just joined. Francis White, hello everyone.
G'day,
hello Francis, how are you, mate? Lisa Bullman and Michelle Joy. So those two are on the Gold Coast here, related to us fellas.
Hey. Seems like we're Queensland mob all sticking together there.
Yeah.
We've got a little bit of a spread there, but we want some more WA mob joining
I
in.
know.
So.
I shared it with all them mob, but I don't know. It must be it's 3 o'clock on a Friday here.
Oh, still working.
Fella's still working or
Still busy,
yeah.
Well, they can find us if they search for that group page, so that's good.
That's good.
Yeah, because we've got a bit of a YouTube channel happening, so we put all these up on YouTube and then filter them through like our personal Facebook accounts as well, and even on Twitter. So, LinkedIn.
Website.
Oh,
yeah.
cool.
Sorry, CJ. Tell us a little bit about the website that you've set up, because you've done a magnificent job doing that, CJ.
Oh yeah, no, it's good. It's just keeping everything together and keeping the social media happening as well. So it's been pretty good. Yeah, I put one together the other day. Well, not the other day, about a week ago. So
yeah,
it's good.
Oh, good. It's good to keep that interaction going with everybody. That's really important.
Well, this is the way of the world, isn't it? You know, COVID's kind of said, well, yeah, you've got to get on. And we were saying how earlier that a lot of our friends that didn't go on Facebook or didn't do the social media stuff are now doing it because of the connection, you know, and being able to communicate with people because they're, isolated, I suppose. So
I think you go.
You go on. No, you go, please.
I think our I know that a lot of elders that I've seen online now have become a lot more tech savvy in the last 3 months than they've ever been, and their grannies because they haven't been able to visit them. You know, they just and that's been my mum was just saying the other day like that being able to give her grandkids a hug is something that and anybody, like I'm a hugger, so I like to hug people. So even when I go to meetings now, I'm like, oh, do you hug people? Do you elbow bump? Do you But today I was like seeing an old friend that I'd talking about doing a PhD now, and so she was I was like, nah, stuff it. And then other people in the cafe saw me hugging and they were like, oh, we were so frightened too. And now they were just like getting up and hugging each other, and I thought, oh well, you know, like there's no community contamination here. Like there's nothing through the community. It's only stuff coming in international for us here. So we're a little bit and I think the second wave discussion is still live in lots of different places. So is that feedback?
Cool. Something's happening here. I'm not sure what that is.
I don't know. Now, Dorinda.
Yes.
I just picked up something there. Did you say you're going to do a PhD?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Tell us a little bit about what you're going to do the PhD on, please.
I'm gonna create a community wellbeing index. It's called. And what it's going to do, and because in the last 20 years of my working career, I've done a lot of work in social impact, and so I feel like sometimes when I'm working in social policy, it's a deficit model, and it's draining physically, emotionally, mentally, soul drenching, draining. Like, it just rips the soul out of you because you're constantly saying the same thing about why we need to do things differently, why we need to invest in a different way. And so in my business development, wearing that hat, economic development has been a really critical pathway for our mob. And what we haven't been able to do is find out how we can activate that in relation to making community wellbeing much better. And so I think I need to investigate that a little bit more and to find a way to bring the two, almost like a big zipper in the middle, of how we create, because poverty is the biggest issue for our mob, you know, trauma and poverty, you know, that if we can fix those two things, I think, and maybe that's not a simple formula, but there's so many other aspects that are come from that I think we've got to bring a conversation together that is about the social impact and about how we fix this through not just investment in that way, but healing on country, creating infrastructure for our mob through economic development. So I think there are other nations that have done this very well through treaty settlements, through Indigenous land use agreements. So I've been doing a little bit of sort of background study in it. And then today I had a conversation about how do I put pen to paper now, because one day I'd like to be a doctor, not necessarily a medical doctor, but a doctor to find ways for our mob to measure our own productivity and the things that we do in our own communities, and how we can create a circular economy so that we are actively involved in building for the future generations a community wellbeing process that enables us to see a future for our mob. And so I think that if we can't be what we can't see, and if we can't see it, we don't envisage there's a pathway to it. So there always must be a way that we can envisage that. So that's sort of where the PhD will go to, I think. Yeah.
Love that.
That'd be very interesting.
Yeah, I think it will be.
Yeah, absolutely.
Challenging.
100% challenging. I mean, good luck with it all.
Thank you.
And the thing that I love most about what you were talking about then, I mean, the wellbeing index sounds fantastic, but to do it without that deficit model, to do it through a strength-based approach, that's what we love. That's what CJ and I love to hear. That's what we talk about all the time, is about, you know, our mob's being able to work through it with a strength-based approach rather than the deficit model, you know. So
absolutely.
Celebrate what we're doing well. So that's what we need to be doing.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
absolutely.
You know, all of those social determinants, you know, they affect the way who we are as people, you know. And I think that, like with this stuff we're doing here online at the moment, it just comes from that. You know, can we sit around and do nothing, or no, let's get online and do this, you know, sort of stuff. Totally. And
and like with that too, CJ. I mean, we actually talked about this when we met up one morning. We were just each of us were going for a walk, and we ran into each other. Hadn't seen each other for a little while. Started having a yarn about COVID-19, and we were both saying how much we missed our community work and how much you know, played on with our mental health as well. So, and then just the week after, CJ, we thought, well, we're going to get online, we're going to do this. Did a little bit of research around what platform to use and all that sort of stuff. And here it is, and it's still going, you know. So
awesome. And I think you just have to believe that you can do it.
Yeah, we didn't know what we were doing, though, to tell you the truth. We were just having a yarn.
Yeah.
We still don't know well.
But the thing is too, Dorinda, like you, I mean, we're big huggers too. We love our hugs, you know, and that's what we do wherever we go, you know. I'm not into these elbow touches and all that sort of stuff. I can tell you. But for us to be able to get this up and involve people, you know, like we've got so much good feedback about, you know, just from, as CJ said before, people that live alone, you know, they're the ones that are you know, really struggling at times, you know, because they haven't had the contact, you know. Others are a bit luckier. So yeah, look, it's something that we thought we'd give a crack. So
awesome.
Yeah.
And it
Give it
sounds
a
like
go.
it's working really well.
Well, yeah, we'd encourage anyone else that they want to get on and, you know, do this. It's
Yeah, we are.
You know,
Yeah.
and I can see, you know, look, we've got a probably loyal following here that come on every sort of Monday and Friday nights and afternoons, and you know they, you know, they get something from it. I don't know what it is, and we sometimes muck around quite a bit, and, you know, and have a bit of a laugh and that type of stuff. But I think it's a bit of an outlet as well, so people, you know, get involved with all their stuff during the week, and then at the weekend, Friday comes, and we'll sit down and have a listen to these two fellas talk about with someone else.
I can just hear my dog going ballistic. I think someone's at my front door.
oh, look out! That's a first for us, CJ.
Yeah. I keep getting interrupted by someone at the front door.
Go on.
Where the police?
Do you need to go and see?
I'll go and let him in, eh? See if I
All right.
Yeah.
We'll talk about you while you're gone.
Yeah. It could be all good. Yeah, CJ, what have you got planned for the weekend, my brother?
Mate, I've got work and I've got work and I've got work. I think, yeah. It's I've got a deadline to meet, so I've got the end of this month to finish a lot of this stuff off. So once I'm done there, I'm a lot more freer. You know, I'm a bit more free to do whatever I get onto the you know, not to say that what I'm doing isn't good, but stuff that I want to get involved in. You know, so it's really looking forward to it. But it's that little bit of, you know, getting things done, I suppose. And
but you will be getting out for your daily walks, eh?
I'll still be going for my daily walks. I'm just looking out there now. It's sunset just about happening, but getting into my daily walks. You know, trying to lose a few kilos. Stop eating banana bread and making banana bread.
Sorry.
That's all right.
What's our next challenge, PJ? What's our next challenge?
Yeah, I know. I still haven't baked a cake. We're talking about one of my bucket list things. Dorinda, is baking a cake. I've never baked a cake, so.
I saw Jack's brownies. I need to get ready for them raw.
Yeah.
I actually got pulled up on that, Dorinda.
Why?
Apparently, they weren't raw. Because they were put in the oven. So once they've been put in the oven, they're not raw anymore. So I had to actually change the wording to natural.
Oh, okay. Oh, I didn't know that.
Something every day, I think. So
yeah, there you go. Yeah. No, they someone else had to go at them as well, Jack. I think one of my friends, and said how nice they were. Very nice.
Yeah, exactly right.
What sort of cake? What sort of cake are you gonna Because I'm quite the baker, actually. I like to bake. So.
Oh, do you? Oh, you probably be able to give me some hints.
Yeah. Well, what about a recipe?
Don't open the oven at all during baking.
I don't know that. Good idea. Yeah. Now we started with some banana bread. So, you know, Lisa, Jack's wife, gave us the recipe for banana bread. So I gave that a go, and that was good. Yep. So the next one is probably going to be like a sponge or something like that, I reckon.
Make sure you use room temperature butter.
Room temperature butter. Make sure it's room temperature. Don't
do cold. My girls are just coming home from school.
Oh, hello.
Hey, say hi.
How you going?
This is Kira and this is Ailish.
Say another first.
Hey.
What's your name? What's your name, darling?
This one? Ailish.
Yeah. Ailish.
Yeah, and the other one's Kira.
So that's what all the barking was about.
Yeah, no, it's the serviceman for the garage door.
And that's
right.
Barking.
That's their dog barking. Yeah.
Yeah.
What's the dog's name?
What's your dog's name?
His name's Bo, but we call him Boy.
Boy.
Yeah, good one. I like that.
Boy. It's easy to remember, isn't it?
Yeah.
Have a good day at school.
Yeah, CJ.
His name is
Just had a bit of a go at us. We need new history. Get baking banana bread. That's old news. So get
right. I'm going to have to make some cakes. Yeah, my mother used to make a beautiful marble cakes. And,
yum.
yeah, I used to love that. So that's a bit
Is it
technical.
like rock cakes?
Hey?
Is it like rock cakes? They turn out really hard.
No, they just like they've got the different flavors for it. Like there's chocolate and there's other stuff in it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, it's quite nice. But yeah, my mum
Sounds
used to
good,
make
brother.
that. Yeah, it sounds good. I might
Can't wait.
give
You
it a
always
crack. I
start
suppose.
with Johnny cakes.
I always,
Yeah.
I love my Johnny cakes. Don't worry.
Start with Johnny cakes.
Yeah, I love me
My
Johnny
girls were
cakes.
getting lists about Johnny cakes last weekend. So
Yeah, it's a good alternative to bread, I suppose. But you've got some flour there and a bit of water. You laugh.
yeah, awesome.
Yeah. So, but yeah, no, we'll do. We need new. Oh, this is Jen Hogan. All right, Jen.
We need new, not history.
Yeah, that's right. There you go. So yeah, right. We'll have to get on to that, Jack. Next, we've got the weekend, so maybe on Monday we've achieved something else.
The news of the world.
Yeah.
Now, Dorinda.
Yes.
What do you got lined up for the weekend?
I have absolutely nothing lined up for the weekend. I'm gonna work on my PhD proposal. That's what I've got lined up for the weekend, and just spend some time with my kids. So because they've been at school, you just don't find time during the week. By the time you get home at night time, it's dinner and the routine of getting them off to bed. So I'm going to pick some activities over the weekend. So I might take them on a little bit of a bushwalk or something. So something that challenges them a bit physically, but also just they love to get out on country. And so the last sort of time we were out and about was picking quandongs on country. My mum makes quandong jam. And so, yeah, not very traditionally. We do it in the Thermomix, so she nearly blew up. But yeah, we took the girls out looking for quandongs, and so they really love that sort of stuff because they learn about the trees, they learn about fruit, they learn about just where it's safe to walk, and just they really love nature. They're quite they've got that really strong Noongar blood in them, so they really love to reconnect to nature. When they were both born, I buried their placentas on country here.
Nice.
So took them up and buried them some olive trees, and so they're on the New Norcia Mission site. So it's about 200 k's northeast of Perth, but they're on the old cottages site where my 5 generations of my family who were removed from their families as part of the stolen generation lived and worked, and so they're buried their placentas there, so that we always have a reconnection through the women's side to that area and to make sure that we preserve it and look after it. So when we visit there, we always talk about that the songline is the river there and the importance of that and their connection to country. So we put it all in a book for them as well. So any chance that they get to go out into the bush, they love it. So really,
that's fantastic, and thanks for sharing that with us as well, because people need to know those traditional stories and those sort of things, because it is such a great part of our history. So it's fantastic. Thanks for sharing that. We had some really good stories come out of the Hopevale men's group on Tuesday night, same sort of thing, and people were just loving it. Like people that never get the chance to talk to fellas, from Hopevale and in that situation, like a men's group, So thank you again for sharing that with us, because that's so important.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, I think that connection to country stuff is something that we all know most of us know where we come from, but as I said, I'm the first generation of my mother's family that weren't removed. And so when I talk about that, people go, oh, really? And then my daughters are still, with me. So it's that breaking of the intergenerational trauma that is so real for us as a family that, and my mum talked to me about my responsibility as a mother now, and I talked to her about her responsibility as a grandmother. So, it's a good segue for conversation, and again, as you both said, Charlie and Jack, the strength space and conversations that you can do in that yarn is so important to make sure that we're supporting each other in the work that we do moving forward.
Yeah, no, that's
it really is that storytelling as well, because we're really good at it, and that's our history as well, and it needs to be passed on, and everyone has a story, and everybody needs their story heard as well. So, that's that whole approach that we love. We do most of our work with that approach, and it's all that bottom up approach. And I know you do it, Dorinda, and I know CJ does as well. So it's the only way that works with our mobs. So
yeah, Jack, that was remember that 1,000 days work you did. The first 1,000 days, and the welcome to country that they have now. Every year they have a welcome to country, and all the mums bring their bubs to this ceremony.
Yeah,
beautiful. Just to the north side of Brisbane. Yeah.
Yeah, we need one of those. Yeah,
absolutely. And that's seriously one of the best things I've ever seen in my life was the welcome baby to country, but also the fathers being involved as well, and how proud they were, and how it made them feel wanted and loved again. So a few of those lads were really lost, and just being part of that, they just loved it so much, and it's gone so well. So they're going to have one on the Gold Coast, CJ.
Are they?
In August.
Yeah. So all that new arrivals, there's straight away they're welcome to country, these little ones. So how nice is that? I mean, yeah.
But I think you put a fire pit anywhere, and you'll get every black fella in like 15k coming there.
That's right.
That's right. Smoke rising, and they're like, "Hey, what's going on over there?" But the fire, sitting around the fire, yarning, telling, that healing that comes from that is just, we can't ever, I don't think, lose that as part of who we are and the way we do our business, and what we bring to that, and the healing that comes from that, and the resilience that's shown through people being brave enough to talk, in the face of fire, I think is probably the analogy that I would use, because they feel the warmth, they feel the strength of it, they feel they can talk, in that space. I think it's a beautiful space. There's nothing beats being around a fire having a yarn.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, especially out on country, like you say. It is special, isn't it? And you sleep well as well after that. You're really restful.
Yeah,
you feel
Absolutely. And the fire is just so mesmerising. So I mean, the stories that get told are, some of them are believable, but some not so believable as well.
Yeah, that's right.
We've got a couple more people we need to say good day to as well.
Oh,
who else we got there? We've got Vicky Rose on the Gold Coast watching. G'day, Vic. Our sister. Richard Weston. G'day, Richard.
Hi, Richard. Hope it's going well at Snake.
Yeah, he is. We had him on a couple of weeks ago. Fantastic fellow, Richard. We've got Uncle Eric Peters down in Healesville watching. G'day, Uncle Eric. How are you, mate?
How you going?
George Paris, he's in Melbourne as well. G'day, George. Yeah, so
you've got following, you guys.
Too good. The more we do it, we have a bit of fun, and that's what it was about. Like, we all realise how important humour is. And it doesn't matter what we're doing, we find humour and we make that part of what we do. And I think it goes a long way for that healing process. So and we're all healing one way or another. So it's really important to have that humour, and as long as it's not too wayward,
well, I've got to ask you, Dorinda, being over in WA, are you an AFL supporter?
Oh, yes, definitely. And I'm a one-eyed Freo supporter.
Freo supporter, are you?
Yeah, because
right.
I grew up in Freo, so that's my hood. And I ran as a political candidate in Freo in the last by-election last year, or 2 years.
Right.
Yep. And I'm due for a run this and the next one too. So
yeah, good on you. Absolutely.
Dorinda, tell us a little bit about that. I'm sure people would love to hear about that.
My political career.
We don't want to hear about the Dockers, I can tell you that.
Yeah. Look, running in a by-election, I had 13-week campaign that I ran. Running for a federal seat in the lower house is pretty, again, exhausting mentally. I think on election day I couldn't speak. I just was done talking to media, talking to people on doorsteps, talking to everybody. So I think by the end of that, you sort of get so mentally drained that you just can't think straight. So you just show up to every polling booth and show your face.
Yeah.
But I think politics is in our blood, as Aboriginal people. I think we're born into political life. We can't get away from it. Everyone wants our opinion about everything. And so by default, we become political in what we do. And so I've always been a bit of a political nerd, but I was always a very staunch Labor supporter because my dad voted Labor. And it wasn't until I got into my late 30s that I realised that country and being on country and preserving and protecting country was my role and my responsibility, and discovered that the Greens policies were much more aligned with my values as an Aboriginal person. And I joined the Greens Party, in only a couple of years ago, and they asked me to run as one of their candidates about 3 years ago, and then 2 years ago, 18 months ago. And I'll run at number 2 for the state election here in March next year for the upper house. So I'm invested in politics. Because I believe that that's where the change is. I think if we get people who are politically aligned that are going to enable us as Aboriginal people to, one, be recognised in this country. So I'm a firm believer that we need recognition, but also to create treaties with the First Peoples of this country to make sure that we are moving in a direction that is about self-determination, that is about preservation of culture, preservation of country, and most of all, our rights, as Aboriginal people, to practice our culture, to make sure that we are strong in our identity. And I know that we come from very multicultural communities across Australia, and I'm not denying that, but we are the oldest living culture in the world. And so for me, at a political level, we need to make sure that that's enshrined in what we do within the parliament. And so it's absolutely critical that we have more of us, as in Aboriginal people, in both state and federal politics to make sure that people understand that. I think the negative stereotypes that they have of us as Aboriginal people are a thing of the past, but not leaving behind our history and that truth-telling and the importance of what I like to call conciliation, not reconciliation. I think that we're moving into a space that is about how we can create a future that's for all of us. And so I think that in politics, that's our role and our responsibility to do that. And so, she gets like this because she hasn't seen me all day. So she's wants to be all huggy. But
so vote 1, Dorinda Cox.
Sorry?
Vote 1.
Dorinda
Vote 1,
Cox.
yeah. And well, I'll be, vote 1 in the upper house in WA. But yeah, I'm very excited for Lydia Thorpe in Victoria too, for the Senate.
Yes.
She gets up in that, because she's an amazing woman, Lydia. And so,
absolutely.
But we need some more men. So we've only got well,
I was thinking about CJ actually, because he's such a powerful figure here in Queensland.
Oh, there you go.
Oh, really? I don't think so, mate. No, not at all.
I reckon you'd be good, bro.
Yep.
Oh, here I am on the bench, just relaxing, just what the... you know.
I think there's nothing to be lost from having a political career. It's only,
Yeah,
I think we have enough public enough life. I think it's really then,
yeah, yeah.
I think the work that we do, Jack, at a national level when we sort out to give comment around family and domestic violence and the issues that are happening in our communities, and you, Charlie, and the work you do, I think we already have those public, professional reputations, and people recognise us already as people that are of great integrity and great experience in our working with our communities. And I think that anybody can be a politician, any one of us. And I don't think it's a special skill. But what I think that needs to happen is that we believe that we're representative of our mob and making sure that we're true to who we are in our integrity and not forgetting any of that because we're a politician. I think that we need to move forward in seeing everyday people with political leadership and public life being part and parcel of who we are as Aboriginal people. We should shy away from that. So,
well said. We've got a couple more comments there. Richard Weston just said, JB, your humour is a bit wayward. Okay. He's getting a bit cheeky now, Richard. But he also said,
does that
CJ
mean you've got
could
some jokes?
Sorry?
JB, have you got some jokes then that you need to tell? You should ask Richard.
CJ could run for politics on a banana bread platform. Richard also said
that. I think that would be an awesome campaign. You can hand out banana bread.
I think there was a politician in Queensland that did something like that. His name was JB Elkie, I think. It was something Banana State or something. I can't remember what it was.
Yes.
But
so I'm hoping that Richard's last comment was a serious one and not like the other two, or the other way around. He said, "Great insight into being in politics from Dorinda."
Oh,
yes,
Richard.
Yeah, that's right. We had this conversation during Reconciliation Week. I was on a webinar, and there were four of us, and there was the young bloke Thomas Mayer, who was involved in the Uluru Statement, pulling that all together, and there was a young girl up in Cairns, and then I can't think of the other fellow's name, but it was really interesting, talking about where the difference might be made, and especially in government, I suppose we need to be able to, somehow change the government, but then it's all about what we do at a community level as well. You know what I mean? It's really about getting at people, and that's when we talk about our mob. I think it's the electorate really. It's really about bringing that group into the fold, and getting them on side and understanding and raising that awareness. So my thing with all of that stuff like reconciliation and trying to make a change is generally with people in my community. It's all about talking to them, getting to know them. People, I've only been down in the Gold Coast here, about 8 weeks or so. They call me by my first name and everything now when I walk up and down, so they get to know me, and they just know me as CJ. And that's nice, you know what I mean? And it's they're seeing me as this person whose name's CJ walking up on the beach. That's it. But it's about changing some mindsets along the way. And I talk about when we do the reconciliation stuff or conciliation. I like that, Dorinda, what you mentioned. It's all about. It's always seems to be us doing the conciliation stuff. And if we're going to be talking about conciliation, we need two parties, and that's to concile. So we need to encourage our brothers and sisters to get more involved and put something on themselves, to show that there's of their support and that type of stuff. So, so that's where I see that movement needs to happen on the ground. I suppose if you're in politics, even at a local government level, you've got constituents, then you've got your community that you need to be very active in. And so all the best to you, Dorinda, in terms of that.
Thank you.
Coming up. So.
If I need a campaign manager with lots of banana bread, I'll have to call on you.
Very well said, CJ. Really well said.
Absolutely.
Now,
and so
we're
true.
going to an end here. Dorinda, thanks so much for your time.
Oh,
We'll let you get back to your kids. You're our first guest from WA, so congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I love being first at something.
yeah.
That excites me. But I
Number
won't
one,
be the
number
last.
one.
I won't be number one.
Number one.
Number one. And hope one-
Well, I'm hoping that you get some brothers and sisters from WA now coming on board. And
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Please, we've done that.
yeah. So tell me who
Yeah.
you want. I'm sure you got some broom contacts, JB. You've
Yeah,
been up
yeah,
there
no,
enough
we-
bloody times.
Yeah. I was actually just talking to a couple of that mob over there, and they're pretty keen to get on as well. So
Oh, good. Good.
yeah,
That'd be really good to have a yarn with them because they've been locked down in the Kimberley, so they haven't been anywhere. But
and still locked down too. So yeah,
I think they've
But,
opened the borders up. So I think, that's only just happened.
yeah, open the board. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's what's going to happen here shortly, isn't it, JB? I think they're talking about the 12th of June.
Hey,
12th of June.
I'm really hoping so. 12th of June. That's today, brother.
July, sorry.
Oh,
July,
that's another
okay.
month away.
Oh, you got me excited then. I'm thinking, yes.
Yeah,
Because you know why? I'm stuck down here in Tweed at the moment because I couldn't get back into Queensland.
really?
Hey.
Everyone just trying to get back, and it was just hectic. It was bumper to bumper to bumper. So
God.
that's a little story in itself. So yeah,
Oh, wow.
All the way from New South Wales, my God.
oh yeah.
Oh. Well, I
So
hope
I
you
had
get back
to get
soon.
Lisa and Bella to rush the laptop down to a friend's place, and that's where we're doing it from now. So yeah,
Oh, right. Oh, so you're still on the road, JB, eh?
yeah. We haven't made it home yet,
Oh, right.
right.
but all good.
You'll get home. You'll get home. Yeah,
You'll get
that's
home
right.
one day.
I'll call past your place on the way home, CJ.
What's that, mate?
I'll call past your place on the way home.
Well, pull into what do you call it? Bloody Scales, grab some fish and chips. It'll be good.
Yeah.
No.
Oh.
All right.
Thanks,
Dorinda.
Dorinda.
Yeah.
Thank you, CJ.
Thanks, JB.
We'll
Thanks,
talk
Dorinda.
Thank you. And
Yeah.
thanks for everyone
Been
online.
really good.
I'm just seeing their comments. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. See you again. All the best.
Thank you.
Great work.
Keep up the great